so that when I start, I don't have the ability to shoot anything. Okay. In fact, I'm going to set my start state for debugging purposes. I'm going to call no weapons weapon 0, and I'm going to add a new event. So I'll call this weapon 0. I'll make sure it's global. I'll right click, add global transition weapon 0, so that if I press the 0 button, it's a quick way to make sure that, I end up back over here so I can test ammo, test ability to pick up a weapon, that sort of thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build some weapon switching into my mechanic here. And the easiest way to do this is to simply do a series of input keys, so get key down. And I'm going to listen for, I'll listen for the alpha numbers, meaning that those are the numbers atop the keyboard along the top, not the number keypad. So alpha 0 is the 0 key, and I'm going to send an event. I don't need any events because I'm referring to global transitions, okay? And they're showing up local here, so I don't even need to pick them from, I don't need to go to, custom events and look for global. It just doesn't matter here. So when I press 0, I want to go to weapon 0. I'm not going to store the results, although that could be useful in a moment. I'm going to copy this action and paste it, and I'll go alpha 1, weapon 1, paste, alpha 2, weapon 2, and you guessed it, alpha 3, weapon 3. Okay? So right now, the logic is that when I'm in no weapons, I can switch with a key press to any one of these 3 weapons. But for now, I get stuck in weapon 1, 2, and 3 because I don't have a way to get back. Okay? Now, there's some other things that we could do to make this a little bit more scalable, but I'm just going to take the simple way out. So I'm going to collapse all these actions. That's command, collapse one of them. They all collapse. That can be useful. I'm going to select the first action, shift click, and copy. So I have all those action sets selected. And I'm just going to paste these into all of the idle states. Okay? Again, there's a slightly cleaner way to do this, but I think from a logic standpoint, this is kind of the most straightforward way. Okay? So whenever I'm in any idle state, I can press any key to go anywhere. So let me test this now. I'm going to hit the play button. And not only am I going to watch for the weapon switching down here when I start, so I can't shoot anything right now because I have no weapons. I press the number 1 key and I'm shooting weapon 1. Press the number 2 key, I'm shooting weapon 2. Press the 3 key and I'm shooting weapon 3. 2, 1, 0. Okay? The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a weapon check to see if we even have the ability to use this weapon. Okay, so nothing to do with the ammo yet. So when I created these objects before and prefab them, I'm going to select these 3 and just get rid of them because I've already prefabbed them. They're providing the function that I want. When I want to go back and change this weapon system, I really only need to change the projectile and the way it's created. In the case of Fady, if I want to create kind of a spread fire, I have a demo over here that we can open up and look at how I did it. But you could either have 2 create game objects and offset them from the spawn. You could even rotate them a little bit and guide their direction. Okay, so they're still flying in their own direction. They're just offset and rotated a little bit when they're created. That would be the easiest way to interpret that. Okay. But we're just using different prefabs. Okay, so we know that we start off with no weapons, and I'm going to create 3 simple game objects that are going to look exactly the same. The reason I didn't want to use the ones that were already created was because they were prefabs, and even if I break the prefab, I didn't want to compete with any of their association. Okay, so there we go. I want all three of these to be triggers because I want to be able to pick up these objects with the player and I want to be able to pass through them rather than hit them. So I'm going to select all three of these again. I'll go to the inspector and I'm looking for their colliders, and so I'm not getting their collider here. I was hoping to see their collider, but because they're different colliders, I got to go through these. If these were all cubes, they would show up. Let's say I got to go through these one at a time. Okay, so I'm going to go to my cube, right click. I want to set up a simple pickup object. Someone help me out here. What's the what am I doing here with my idle? But I did tag them with trigger. You're on the right track. Yep. Okay, so let's do trigger. We're going to do a trigger event. On trigger, enter. I'll tag it, right? I'll tag it with player so that my projectiles don't give me the weapon, or maybe that's something I want to do. I'm not sure. But we'll say player. It's a good time to double check to make sure that I'm tagged with player. I am. Okay, so I'll go back to the cube. So we're listening for a trigger event with player. I'm going to, I've already created a next event in a previous state machine. That's why I can select it from custom events, because I created it once before in this project, and so it remembers it. So I can just choose it rather than create a new one called next. I'll take the shortcut to add it as a state, and I'll wire this over. This is the pickup state. What do we want to do in our pickup state? Well, let me test this trigger first, just it's best practice anyway. So if I can, oh, I still didn't fix my tank is very hard to control. I should really fix that for this demo. Terrible. Let's see. Let me zoom in here a little bit. I'll make this teacher proof. There we go. So again, I just want to test this. Want to pass through it. Okay, so it's firing. I know everything's working, so I don't have to worry about it not getting to the pickup state. Now I want to tell it to be able to use weapon 1. Okay, so we have a choice here, depending on how we want our mechanics to work. We could say, go to weapon 1 and just start using it. So the only way we can use that weapon is if we run over an object and we have that. The only way I can switch a weapon is to run over and run into the sphere or the capsule, okay? If that were my mechanic, all I have to do is say, on the cube, send event, and target the player object, the multi-weapon, and every time I trigger this, say weapon 1, 2, or 3 corresponding with the thing. Okay, but that's if I want to switch based on passing through these, and that's a legitimate kind of gameplay. Anyone can get those weapons. They don't disappear. You activate it by passing through it, and now I'm using that thing. You guys with me? Okay. But let's say I want to pass through here, destroy that, and now be able to switch to that weapon. Before I couldn't, because I didn't have it. Now I can. You with me? Okay. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is when we end up, either when we end up coming into weapon 1, or when we try to shoot, we can determine that we do or don't have it. And again, it depends on how you want this thing to work. Are we going to have a heads-up display? We have a couple of different options here. We could think of it like ammo. I can't use it, therefore I'll just keep my ammo at 0. I don't have any heads-up display representing, it's active or not active, or I have it, but I technically don't have any ammo, and that becomes the only criteria by which I can use it or not use it. Okay? You with me? So I could just have, they could all be active, but I don't have any ammo, so I can't use it. Or I don't even have the weapon, and I gotta pick it up first. Okay? So let's do really quickly, let's just do an ammo, because we'll need that in just a moment anyway. So what I'll do is I'll just keep referring this as weapon 1. I'm going to go into variables. So I'm creating my events and my variables separate from the pull down menus, because I need a couple of them, making sure I'm using a float type variable. So when you're creating variables outside of a drop down menu based on an action, the action determines the kind of data. It only lets you create a data type that you can use for that field. right? And what I mean by that is, for example, get key down, storing the result. If I float my mouse over here, it says the type of this data is a bool. So if I create a new variable, it's creating a bool. Okay, I didn't have to choose bool, but I'll call this bool test. Now when I go over to variables, I have a bool test that's a bool type. Okay, I want to create a float type variable that is weapon 1 ammo. Okay, I'll copy this because I'm going to make more. I'll deselect, paste, weapon 2 ammo, deselect, paste, weapon 3 ammo, okay? I like to leave all my ammo set to 0 and initialize it, or all my variables set to 0 and initialize. That way we don't have to control it. If we respawn, we automatically get a default state of ammo, okay? But we can discuss that a little bit later too. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build an ammo check in here. So I'm going to add a state, and this will be just a generic ammo check, even though we're going to check different ammo for different weapons. They're all just going to be a simple ammo check.
Is this a different way to do what I just?
Maybe. I mean, maybe a different logic. We can, I'll demo here, and then you can compare and contrast to yours. So I need 2 transition events to, pass this off. We do have ammo, we don't have ammo. So I'm going to call this have ammo and no ammo, or does not have ammo. And I'll add both of these. We have ammo. We have no ammo. So if we have no ammo, we're just going to loop right back to idle. Okay, so the effect is that, yeah, we're in weapon 1, but we're not shooting anything. If we have ammo, we're going to go to fire 1. Okay, so the idea is that when we fire, we're firing, and I'll wire shoot down to ammo check. So when we shoot, we're going to come down to check ammo. If we don't have ammo, we loop back here. Okay, so let me test this. Set a start state. So right now, it's actually not test. Actually, I gotta add my float compare. It's not going to test anything. It's not going to leave this state. So I'm getting ahead of myself here. So we'll do the standard float compare, same way we're comparing health. We're just comparing ammo. So in this case, we're comparing weapon ammo 1 against 0. So if we're equal to 0, we have no ammo. If we're less than 0 for some reason, we shouldn't be, but we're gonna account for it, we have no ammo. If we're greater than 0, we have ammo. We don't need to check it every frame because the only time we enter here is when we press the shoot button. So we just check it upon shoot, and then it should direct us whether we have ammo or not. We don't have any ammo because I'm leaving the default value of ammo 1 set to 0. So I should loop between idle and ammo check right now. Okay, I can't get to shoot an object. But I'll just temporarily go to ammo 1 and I'll set this to 2. I should be able to shoot twice. Because the logic is right now my ammo that I'm checking has 2. Okay. So we have positive ammo, we'll go to fire. The only thing that we're missing is the subtraction for the ammo, right? Because every time we shoot, we want to subtract 1 from the ammo. Okay, so I'll do a float add over here. Weapon 1, and we'll add a -1. So if we have ammo, if we're greater than 1, we end up passing through where we fire an object, and every time we fire an object, we take 1 away from our ammo. Okay, so we'll test this. I'll hit the play button. I should be able to shoot 1 of weapon 1, 2 of weapon 1, and now I should be out of ammo. Can't shoot. Okay? If I pick up more ammo, then I can shoot more. All right? Any questions about that? Got ammo? Okay. So the final thing that we'll do for the weapon switching part of the mechanic is let's determine, based on some simple bool switching, whether we can use weapon 1 or not. Okay? Now, I want to point out I'm not using global variables here. I want to start avoiding global variables, although I could. This would be a good case because it'd be really easy to talk to global variables, but I'm going to use local variables and then we'll access that data.
I see that ammo check.
Yep. Yep, just a flow compare, just probably like how you have the, here, let me pull these apart. Oops, move this over a little bit. Let me peel this over so you might be able to see that logic a little bit more clearly.
Okay, so I did that wrong. Okay, got it.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a check before we even go to shoot that checks the weapon bool to say, do we have the weapon or do we not have the weapon? If we have the weapon, we just come down to idle. We pass right through it. If we don't have the weapon, where do we go?
No weapon.
No weapon. In this case, weapon 0 will suffice as well to no weapon. So again, I'm going to variables and I'm creating this bool first. I don't have to, or in fact, in this case, I won't. But you know, I could just jump in here and say weapon 1 bool check or weapon 1 check, and then choose a bool type. But what I'll do is I'll right click and I'll say, we'll say has weapon 1. It's a question. Do we has weapon 1? Okay, now I want this to actually be in front of the idle state here. So I'm running out of screen real estate here, so I'll do this, you know, kind of quickly. I'm going to set this back to the start state because we know that we can use the key press to jump back and forth right now. And that's kind of our debug built in. The have weapon, I'm going to add a global transition of weapon 1, which is a little bit of an error right now. So I'll delete this transition and we'll move this up here. Okay, so when we press weapon 1 now, we enter through this weapon check. I'm going to use a bool. We could use an integer, we could use a number of things, but this is kind of what bools are made for. We're going to do a bool test. And the bool that we're going to test we'll make, and I could have made this in variables, but I'll just say new variable on the fly. And I'll call this weapon 1 BL for bool. I'll know what that means. Or weapon 1 check. I forgot the 1. Let me go back to variables, get my weapon 1 check, fix the typo. Okay, I'm going to need more of these, but I'll make those later. So the weapon 1 check is currently set to false, meaning we don't have weapon 1. If it's true, I'm going to add a couple more events here. We'll say have weapon. Or no weapon, oops, or no weapon, or simply, another way to think about this is yes and no, or true and false, okay? You know, it's up to you how you start to arrange this logic. Because I'm saying has weapon or have weapon, and I'm testing against a bool, if we have it, I'll say has weapon, or in this case, I'll just mix it up and say yes, we have the weapon. So if it's true, I'll set this to yes. Logic is we press the weapon 1 key, we check to see if we have the weapon. If this is true, we have the weapon. If it's false, we're going to say no weapon. Okay? So I could say no weapon and then wire it back here, but what's another way to get to state the weapon, no weapon state? Rather than wiring over no weapon.
Weapon 0?
Weapon 0. Oops. I got a faulty wire here. Let's see, link, should be able to, actually I can delete this whole transition. Let me go back here. Weapon 0. Okay, so it's not wired to anything, but if we call weapon 0, it goes finds that transition event. This is kind of the magic of global transitions. They don't need to be wired. We can refer to weapon 0 over here, and it'll jump. Here we're saying, is it true? Yes. So we're directing it down here. If we had a global event that said, yes, we have weapon 1, we could use that and not have to wire it. But here we're just going to say, yeah, we have it, we'll wire it down. Each one of these are, this weapon check, we're going to have here, here, and here. Yes, it goes down. No, it goes back to weapon 0. Okay? We have weapon 1. Right now, we do not have weapon 1. Okay?
Do we test this every frame?
No. Because the only time we're going to end up in weapon 1 and check for it is if we try to use it. Okay, and right now, the only way I can use this weapon, I can press the 1 key to switch. Remember that? If I press the 2 key, I'm in weapon 2, 3 is in weapon 3. If I press 1, it's the equivalent of passing it through the weapon check, and it doesn't let me go to the next state. Why doesn't it let me go to the next state?
Because you don't have weapon.
Because the weapon check bool is set to false. So let me temporarily go to this and switch it to true. Now I should be able to shoot, right? Because I'm passing through weapon 1. We're testing to see if it's true. If it's true, we follow yes, and yes comes down here to idle. Okay? So I'll press weapon 1, and now I can shoot. Shoot, shoot. Shoot again. Okay? Now I'm out of ammo. I still have the weapon, but I'm not shooting. Okay? So I can switch to the weapon, but... Okay?
So how do you have it to pick it?
Okay, so on pickup, what's the result based on this logic? What would we do? So let me back up. Let me go and reset this variable because we want to start with all weapons set to false.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let me get back to my pickup object. Forget about the actual name of the actions and the procedure and the protocol. What do I want to accomplish here on pickup? Add ammo? What if we don't have the weapon? Let's think of this in terms of before we add ammo. Yeah, we can add ammo, and that's a good one. I like it. But if we want to utilize the have or have not weapon, and again, ammo is another way to control that. If you don't have any ammo, you don't have access to the weapon right now. But it feels like it's a little redundant, but this has or has not weapon 1, this will allow us to control whether it's available in our visual UI inventory system. We're tracking whether we have it or we don't have it, and if we don't have it, it wouldn't be available in a UI, or it'd be grayed out in a UI. If we do have it, we light up the UI and say, yeah, you have it. Okay, which would be a little bit more stuff in here, but okay. So it does feel redundant because we're checking to see if we have it and if we have ammo. We're checking 2 things. So right now, let's assume that we have ammo in our weapon waiting to use, so that when we pick up this thing here, it gives us access to the weapon and sets our ammo to whatever we consider full ammo for weapon 1. Okay? So let's go back to our cube pickup. So based on the logic that we have in our weapon switch, our weapon check for 1, what's the thing that we want to do?
Float add for ammo.
Mm-hmm.
Bool switch.
Or just bool set to true for weapon 1. Everyone, you guys with me? Follow? Okay. So, but we're not accessing global variables anymore because global variables are for rookies, right? So now we're kind of beyond that, and we want things scalable. We want multiplayer eventually, where Kevin and I can go duel with our tanks in our environment, and if we're accessing global variables, we need to have 1 variable for each individual player. Whereas if we have a local, I just need ammo and I need health. That's local, okay? So if I want to go access that content, I'll do it in an absolute manner right now.
FSM pool?
Yeah, so what we'll do is there's a state machine category, and in the state machine category, we can get and set data in here. Okay, so just like we would set a bool, we're setting a specific FSM bool, or we're setting a specific game object data. So we'll go to set FSM bool. We'll specify a game object. Now I'm going to manually wire this to player. Okay. That should reveal the FSM names here, which is MultiWeapon is the one that's the one that's holding the data. And now if I click here, we should see the two options that I have. Weapon check, and I want to set the value to true. Okay. So we're targeting specifically the player. Now, to make this super cool, what we would do is we'd say, get the hit object or the trigger object that triggered this and set its variable to true. That would make it truly scalable. Here we're wiring it directly to a specific object. So technically it's not yet fully scalable, but this would be a good test. This would work, okay? So right now, I'm pressing the 1 key, and I know that I can't use anything. I may be out of ammo, my weapon might not work, but I'm gonna debug this one first. So I'm gonna go run over that weapon, I see that it fired, and so now I should be able to shoot. I can't, but I'm gonna select my weapon 1 because I didn't account for that in my pickup. So I'll select weapon 1 and now I can shoot. But I run out of ammo because I did not yet set the ammo, right? So I flip the bool, that's good. So I'll keep testing, or I'll keep setting. I'm gonna do the same thing here, but instead of set FSM bool, I'm gonna set FSM float. We'll specify a game object. We'll identify the player. We'll use the multi-weapon. We'll find weapon ammo, and I'm gonna set weapon ammo to 20. Okay, so now when I pick up the weapon, we unlock it so we can use it, and we set the ammo to 20. So I'm gonna pass through. Well, first I'm gonna test it. I'm pressing the 1 key to activate the weapon, nothing doing. I'll pass through. I still have to, in my logic, I still have to press the 1 key probably to reset it. 1 shot, 2 shot. If I can shoot again, I know that, okay, it took my ammo, because before I could only shoot twice. Now I can shoot 20 times, and when I'm done shooting 20 times, it stops. Now I gotta get more ammo. If I had enough foresight to add a finished state here to reset it, I could just back over this again and reset again. Okay? But let's say whatever weapon I pass through, not only do I want to say that I can use the weapon, not only do I want to set the ammo, but I also want to make sure that that weapon becomes the default weapon that gets set. How would I do that? Do you remember like not in terms of the command, but what, if you think back to our weapon logic, how do we get to weapon 1? What was the transition that got us to weapon 1? What's that? Well, that's how we tested it, but once we got beyond that and we're able to press key 1, 2, and 3 to go to the different states, do you remember what the transition event was? Yep, it's just weapon 1. It happened to be a global transition. So here's what we can do. We can do a send event. Double click. I don't want to send it to myself. I want to send it. Actually, because it's a global event, I don't even have to target the game object unless I have a multiplayer game. Then I want to target the game object. But for now, I'm just going to say broadcast to all. It's a really kind of simple shortcut way to say just tell everyone to go to weapon 1 if I hit this box. The only one who's going to receive that message that's listening for it is the player. Okay? Broadcast all, weapon 1. The best, most appropriate way to do it is specify game object, player, or even more appropriately, specify game object, the collider that I hit, take that object, and set weapon 1. Okay, that's the best way to do it, but I want to shortcut this just to make sure that it works. So now, when I run over this thing, it should activate my weapon. I can just start firing. So right now I'm just clicking, I run over the weapon, and I should be able to fire 20 times. Okay? And in this system, I'll just fix this really quickly. If I finish and I'm basically resetting and listening for another, I'm resetting this to do the same thing again. That's a simple way to say, I don't care if I'm setting the bool again. I'll run it over. I shoot 20 times and I'm out of ammo. Now, when I run this cube back over, I've just activated my weapon again, which didn't matter because it was already active. I also sent it to weapon 1, which didn't really matter because I was already there. Or if I wasn't there, I became there. But then it set ammo to 20. So now I have new 20 ammo. So now it's acting also, not only did it unlock my weapon, but it's acting as an ammo. Okay, now here, currently we're saying set, where's that? Set ammo to 20. If we wanted to say add 20 to existing ammo, which would work also, which would even be better, we would get the value, the current value of ammo from here, and add 20 and then set it. Rather than just saying absolute set 20. Right? Because the glitch here is I can never have more than 20, even if I'm picking these up. Okay? Fear not, I'm going to save this, send it with you. Ping me with questions.